Story 1. This happened a few days ago. I live in a small suburban house for 3 years now. Nothing fancy, just a 2-bedroom with a yard and a concrete driveway where I park my Toyota Corolla. I'm an emergency room nurse with irregular hours. Coming home after a 12-hour shift is the best part of my day. At least it was, until my neighbor decided my car bothered her. My next-door neighbor moved in 6 months ago. She's in her 50s and always seems annoyed when she sees me. We've barely talked except for brief hellos. I had just returned from an overnight shift. We had 3 car accident victims, 1 heart attack, and a child with an allergic reaction. I was tired. All I wanted was a shower and sleep. When I was unlocking my door, I heard someone clear their throat. I turned to see my neighbor with her arms crossed. I said hi and asked if everything was okay. She said no and wanted to talk about my car. I looked at my Corolla in the driveway and asked what was wrong. She told me she sits on her porch every afternoon to enjoy the view, and my car blocks it. She said it ruins her relaxation time. I waited for her to laugh, but she was serious. I asked if she wanted me to not park in my own driveway. She said yes and suggested I park in my garage or on the street so she wouldn't see my car during her tea time. I laughed and asked if she was joking. She got angry and said she paid extra for her house because of the view, and my car was ruining it. I told her I don't have a garage, just a carport, and street parking isn't allowed overnight. I said this is my property and my driveway, and I won't make my life harder just for her view. She told me in her old neighborhood, people cared about each other's views. She said it was a small thing to ask. I disagreed and asked where she expected me to park. She said that wasn't her problem. She suggested I rent a garage somewhere or move to a different house that suited my lifestyle better. I had just worked 12 hours saving lives, and she wanted me to move because my car blocked her view. I told her I was tired from working at the hospital. I wasn't moving my car, and I definitely wasn't moving houses. This is my property, and I'll park in my driveway. She said young people have no consideration for others and don't care about property values or neighborhood looks. I said asking someone not to use their own driveway shows no consideration. She threatened to take it to the homeowners association if I wouldn't be reasonable. I told her we don't have an HOA in this neighborhood. She looked surprised and asked how we keep standards without an HOA. I said we mind our own business and act like reasonable neighbors. Then I excused myself to get some sleep. The next day, I found a petition taped to my door. It said, Neighborhood Aesthetic Improvement Initiative, and wanted to ban unsightly vehicles from driveways. It had 1 signature, hers. The day after, she was measuring the street in front of my house. When she saw me, she walked away quickly. On the 3rd day, I came home from grocery shopping and found her taking pictures of my car. When I asked what she was doing, she said she was documenting the eyesore for the city council. That was enough. I called some neighbors I knew and told them what happened. They said she'd also complained about their garbage cans, garden gnomes, and kids' toys. We organized a neighborhood barbecue that weekend and wrote a real petition about neighborhood behavior that basically said, respect others' property and mind your business. Everyone signed except Karen, who watched from her porch. After the barbecue, I found chocolates and an apology note at my door. The note wasn't very sincere, but said she was, perhaps a bit overzealous. Now she still looks at my car sometimes, but doesn't say anything. When I see her on her porch, I pat my Toyota as I walk by. Some people live in their own world. Story 2. For context, I work with my dad, sometimes for his catering company. He had an event with a lot of people and needed extra help, so I came with him. I woke up at 6 a.m., got there at 7 a.m., and started preparing the food until people arrived outside at about 10 a.m. My job was to bring the food outside on carts and set it on the table. The event lasted until 1:30 p.m., and then we cleaned up and left around 4:30 p.m. It was a lot, but honestly, it was nice to be able to help out and do something important. Later that day, my dad gave me a $100 bill for helping out, and as expected, my mom became extremely upset and said I didn't deserve that much money. She said I should give it to her instead. This is basically how the conversation went. Mom, squinting, where did you get that from? Me, Dad gave it to me for helping out at the catering event today. Mom, $100? That's way too much. You don't need that much money. Me, I woke up at 6 a.m., worked non-stop from 7 to 4:30. That's 9 hours of work. Mom, still, you're just a helper, not a full employee. You should give that to me so it's not wasted. Me, what? No way. I earned it. Dad gave it to me. Mom, you live under my roof. That money should go back to the family. Me, and I just helped feed like 500 people today. I think I can keep one bill without it being seen as a crime. Mom stares at me like I'm out of my mind. I just want to be able to have my own money and my own stuff. It just feels good to have something that I paid for. I've had so many times where she'll break my things or take my money because I didn't buy it myself. Now today she's talking about it again. She says I've always been spoiled and that I'm just being selfish for not wanting to give money to her, my own mother. Most of me feels like I should have the money, but now my dad has done a complete turnaround and says I should give the money back as well. So I don't know if I should just give it back so things don't escalate for no good reason, or if I should just keep the money I worked for. It's not even about the money anymore. It's the principle of it. I did a full day's work. I didn't slack off, didn't complain, didn't take long breaks or disappear when things got tough. I was hauling trays, setting up tables, making sure everything looked perfect for guests who didn't know who I was or how much effort I was putting in. I did it because my dad asked me to, and I figured it would be good experience, and it actually was. But now, it feels like none of that mattered because the second I got something out of it, my mom decided it wasn't mine to keep, and that hurts more than anything. She didn't even ask if I was planning to spend it on something responsible or if I needed it for anything specific. Her first instinct was just to say I didn't deserve it and that she should have it instead. I know I still live at home, and yes, I get that I don't pay for rent or groceries. I'm not ignoring that. But I don't ask for much either. I don't beg for new phones or designer clothes or spend recklessly. I just wanted to have something for myself for once to say that I earned this and I can use it however I want. Now I feel like I'm being made out to be selfish for thinking that way. My dad seemed proud at first. He smiled when he handed me the bill and said I did a good job. But now, after hearing my mom go off about it, he's changed his tune. He says he didn't mean to cause any problems and maybe it would be better if I gave the money back or used it for something the whole family could benefit from. But why does it have to be like that? Why is it that every time I earn something, it somehow turns into a family issue? Why can't I just be allowed to succeed a little bit without being made to feel guilty for it? I'm sitting here looking at that $100 bill and wondering what it's really worth. Is it worth a full day of work? Yes. Is it worth this argument? I don't know. I really don't. Part of me wants to just hand it over and be done with it. But another part of me knows that if I do, it'll set a precedent. It'll tell everyone that whatever I earn isn't really mine. I don't want to feel like that. I don't want to keep feeling like I owe everything to everyone else just for existing. I worked. I earned. And for once, I just want that to be enough. Story 3. So my daughter works at a sandwich shop at a super pretentious outdoor sort of mall. You know the type. Ulta store, Apple store, British pub, stuff like that. She's a kitchen worker and does a good job, from what I've been told. Place is overpriced for my taste, but who am I to get in the way of capitalism? Anywho, about an hour into her shift, she texts me and asks if I can run her work hat to her because she forgot it and doesn't want to get reported for it. I was kind of put out by this because it's my day off, and I'm also watching my 8-year-old. I wasn't planning on getting dressed today, or really doing much beyond playing Legos or Minecraft. Plus it's snowing, so no board shorts and flip-flops. I begrudgingly do as she asks and drive over to give her a stupid hat. I was all set to give her a look when I'm walking towards the restaurant, and I saw her standing rigid with eyes bulging out and tears streaming down her face. The window blocked my entire view, so I couldn't see her from the neck down. This is important for context. As I walked inside the restaurant, hat in hand, I immediately saw the problem. A Karen had grabbed her by the front of her work shirt and was attempting to pull her over the counter. She was calling her every name in the book, refused to let go, and was basically spitting in my daughter's face. The moment I came in, my daughter made eye contact with me and had a big look of relief on her face. I walked up right behind Karen and waited to be noticed. Now, I'm not big or imposing. I don't really stand out in a crowd. That's something I prefer. I'd rather not be someone who can be identified later. Call me crazy. So I managed to get about 6 inches from her and was about to yank her to get her off my kid. But then Karen gave me another gift. Her exact words, "I'll bet your parents are awful people too." So I smiled and leaned down to her ear and whispered, "You mean this awful person right here?" She was obviously startled, so she quickly let go and turned around. Here's the rest of the dialogue. "Who are you?" "I'm her dad. You want to tell me what you're doing to my kid, at her place of business?" "None of your business. You're not her dad. You're just some guy pretending to be her dad." "Lady, I don't know or care what your problem is, but get out of here." "Screw you. If you're her dad, prove it. Let me see your driver's license." "You're out of your mind." I then tell my daughter to call the cops and tell them there's about to be an assault and they need to hurry up because I'm about to put this Karen through your window. I took a single step towards her and she screamed that I'd assaulted her already. "Screw both of you. I'm going to follow you out to your car and follow you home, and when I see your husband, I'm going to knock him out in front of you. You're disgusting. Don't come near me or you'll go to prison." I was trying not to laugh at this point, and she ran out the door. Sometimes, all it takes is the idea of a threat to make them go away. Turns out, this entire scene was because they were out of broccoli cheese soup. And no, I would not have actually done any of that stuff, but she doesn't know that. This lady was banned from the store after this, and we charged her for harassment as well. Story 4. This story happened a couple of hours ago. I'm badly bruised and tired, and for some reason, I wanted to tell my story before I take a warm bath and go to bed. I apologize in advance if it seems rushed. My boss had an incredible idea to have a gaming lounge upstairs. He bought it when the pizza place got sued because of the rat baked in the pizza incident. I am not usually assigned to the lounge, but I was there when this all went down. Anyway, there was a battle going on between 2 gaming groups, ages about 18 to 25. They were playing Defense of the Ancients, and wow, they were taking it very seriously. I'm talking about obscene gestures, constant shouting of strong language, and just basically swearing their greasy heads off, trash talking while they played. Well, after the other group won, the ringleader of the losing team stood up and made a rude gesture at the other team with both hands, then insulted them using every offensive word he knew. It would have made a sailor blush, I tell you. This went on for about a minute before a member of the winning team got really mad. He grabbed his keyboard and smacked the guy across the face with it. That was the spark that set off a full-blown brawl. The 2 teams started fighting, grabbing chairs, keyboards, their drinks just going completely wild and throwing punches at each other. My coworker and I tried our best to keep them from destroying the entire lounge. While my coworker was trying to regain control of the situation and was getting beaten up in the process, I stepped in to help and got punched in the face. Now, I have anger issues, and they tend to flare up when I'm physically hurt. My blood boiled, and I grabbed the guy who punched me. He was the biggest and oldest among them, but in my rage, I didn't care. I punched him right on the chin. Hard. He went down like a sack of potatoes. "Everybody be quiet," I shouted. That did the trick, as everyone froze. My boss came through the door, with 3 police officers behind him. Apparently, he had gone upstairs, saw the chaos, and immediately called law enforcement. The 2 gaming groups were arrested, and we were questioned. They'll be spending the night in jail. The 25-year-old that I punched wants to press charges, but my dad told him it was self-defense and that we could counter with assault charges. The police agreed. The 25-year-old panicked. Their parents were called. They pleaded with the police, my boss, and my dad not to press charges. My dad was extremely upset, but I asked him not to sue. The parents were asked to pay for all the damages to the lounge, which totaled around $3,500, and to cover my coworker's hospital bill, as he had a broken arm and a bruised rib. My boss gave me a paid 1-week vacation. I only have a bruised face, sore knuckles, and I think I chipped a tooth. Edit. Just got a text that my coworker will be pressing charges. Edit. Answering some questions. Why were the parents called? In the Philippines, it's very common to still live with your parents even into your late 20s. If I remember correctly, some of the guys were so scared of going to jail that they called their parents right away, and once a few of them did, the rest followed suit. That's why all the parents ended up getting involved. Why do they call them clans if it's defense of the ancients? In gaming, especially when there's no official guild system, a group of players that regularly play together will often call themselves a clan. It's just how a lot of gaming communities work. It doesn't have to be tied to the actual terminology in the game. Did you really knock out a guy with one punch? I probably didn't explain that part very well. I'm a girl, but a very big girl. The guy was the oldest and biggest of the group, but compared to me, he was still small. Most of them were pretty skinny. Also, that guy had already taken quite a few hits during the fight, so I didn't exactly knock him out from a fresh start. I basically finished him off. That probably sounds a little weird, but that's what happened. How can there be a restaurant upstairs? The building has 2 floors. There's a small stairway on the side that leads to the pizza place. It's a common setup here, 2 businesses operating in the same building, one upstairs and one downstairs. I honestly don't understand why that would be confusing. What's the story with the rat and the pizza? I have no idea. I wasn't there for that. All I know is that the pizza place got sued after that incident, and my boss took the opportunity to buy the space and turn it into a gaming lounge. That's how we ended up with this whole setup in the first place. Story 5. Okay, so I live in a relatively small city in North Carolina and started working at the young age of 14 as a dishwasher, soon working my way up through the restaurant over 2 years. The original owner of the restaurant, a 50-plus-year-old woman, had grown interested in selling the restaurant. After 10 years of great reviews, and honestly, it became the best place in town to go to. A younger male walked in one day through the kitchen door. At the start, I thought he was a new employee. Finding out later that night he was the one interested in buying the restaurant, and the sale went smoothly. Fast forward a year, and the new owner, let's call him Herb, denied the only time I had ever asked for a raise. The $7.50 an hour I started on was not a living wage. He told me I didn't work hard enough, when I had gone as far as to wait on tables and cook, as well as much of the cleanup, maintenance, on top of my job of being their dishwasher. Thankfully for me at the time, my manager, who had listened through the office door, called him out on the nonsense. She got me my raise. Nonetheless, a few months into it, Herb let several coolers which held meat break down and refused to fix them or get a new one. My nice manager couldn't take getting the backlash of always being blamed for things breaking down. Herb is the owner. It was his money. He had to approve anything we did. So on the night we celebrated her 10-year anniversary of working there, she ate the cake my sister and I made her, then also proceeded to quit on the spot right after. The responsibility of management fell onto my sister, and she was forced to take the promotion with no raise or anything. She managed for 9 months, only to feel unheard. For any issue she brought up with equipment or workers, she would always be told, "No, we cannot do that." And after she had had enough trying to convince him on repairs, we were left without a manager for a period of time, and he was forced to drive the 3 hours to come and manage the restaurant himself. A few weeks after, a new manager was hired, and another man was hired to be my help in the kitchen, and me being the head cook at this point in time, I taught him the ups and downs of the kitchen. And this man, he was kind and caring at first, but he sucked up so much that I was overlooked for the kitchen manager position. The guy I loved to watch football with in the kitchen on my phone, using my speaker on slow Sundays, changed into a brutal jerk. He would cuss at the waitresses and try to physically fight me on the daily. He and I were there to open the kitchen alone, and would be joined by wait staff an hour later. He went as far as to buck up to try to fight one of the waitresses one day. When she mentioned she had heard everything he said to me before she walked in, and then told him, "I am done with your nonsense. You can either apologize or you can get out. He has been here a lot longer than you, and you were trained by him, and yet you think you can disrespect him. Heck no." As the man raised his hand to try to smack her, I punched him in his face and, in return, got slammed into the already broken coolers. You do not hit a woman, ever. Fast forward a few months later, and after everyone sees this side of him, they realize I wasn't playing about him being a great jerk. Many of us had tried to tell Herb about his actions, but were met with, "It can't be that bad, he's so nice." Finally, after not being heard or listened to for so long, I began planning how to quit. I had it all planned out, and when we had the meeting, I walked in a suit, already having found a place with, at that time, my fiancée, and a new job far from home. Everyone knew I was overdressed and had questions, and I filled them in on the walkout plan. Yet the mean manager was nowhere in sight. After enjoying the meeting and being called on for my opinions on how to boost sales and better the restaurant, I looked at Herb and answered sarcastically, "Oh me? Now you want to hear what I have to say." Getting in a serious tone now, I stand up and told him, why would I help a business, much less the owner of this business, better themselves when I have been blown off for months? Anything I had to tell you. I was bullied for months, and when I mentioned it, I was brushed off. Have a great day, Herb. Because you quite literally don't have a cook now. Today is moving day, and I'm moving over 4 hours away to a better job, one with an owner who will listen and respect their workers, and not force us to try and cook green, slimy chicken past its expiration date. I quit. He begged for me to stay because he had finally fired the mean manager. He said, "Is there any possible way I can get you to stay?" I looked at him and repeated the words he always told us when we mentioned equipment needed repaired or replaced, in his exact customer support accent. "No, we can't do that." As I walked out, he followed, begging me to stay, and said he finally did what was needed of him. I simply told him, "Too little, way too late," and proceeded to walk out. And what followed was all the coworkers on my side stood up and left too. This is not where it ends. He had purposefully not given me my W-2 forms for taxes, and after a few days of harassing him for my tax papers, I got them. Then, I received a letter from the IRS, saying there was a problem with my tax forms. Therefore, I couldn't receive my tax refund. Calling up the IRS, I found he had not submitted any of the forms he was supposed to as our employer, and when contacting him to rectify the situation, he proceeded to say, "I don't recall employing any of you this year. After all, you all left with no reason or right." Little did he know I record every conversation on my phone, and I reported him to the IRS. Attached to the email, I sent in the voice recording in an MP3 format, and I also sent in photocopies of my check stubs and copies of my W-2s, along with informing my coworkers having issues with their taxes to do the same. Herb has since lost his business license. His wife left him and took their kids after finding out about his fraud. Herb is now facing upwards to 60 years in prison now for multiple counts of tax fraud. It turns out we were not the only business he owned, and refused to pay taxes or file the correct tax forms when needed. He had withheld the safety precaution paid during COVID and used all of it to fix the restaurant. He screwed up, and I got to sit back happily typing this with a smile, knowing this jerk got what was coming to him. For all of you wondering whether I ever got my taxes and my money, yes, I finally did as of yesterday. Thanks for listening to my life story, guys. Story 6. Rewind almost X years ago. I'm still employed at B's within another larger, more successful store. Abe, and almost at my 7-year mark with 0 disciplinary marks or unexcused absences, etc., etc. I was pretty well known in the larger store's management and would often resolve issues that stemmed from B franchise inside Abe, being within their store that our current management would fail at or ignore. The work environment grew over my employment at B's to be toxic due to little oversight or follow-through from an overworked management team. It was the standard nonsense a lot of places do. Try to dish more responsibilities off to hard workers with promises and/or low pay increases, while the crap of the lot got away with whatever. Unless you flat out stole, you could go away for most of your shift, while the few loyal others worked, and while still getting paid with little to no consequences. Well, this grew to a head, and one day a new employee D, who was hardly ever sober when clocked in, caused a scene which resulted in me intervening, which resulted in them physically threatening me numerous times in a very aggressive manner. All on video, by the way. So, a coworker, see, while witnessing this, called management of B, who flat out told them to not call police despite there being threats of violence, but rather call security within Abe. Highly illegal in my parts. But we will get to that later. So I called security. This whole ordeal resulted in Abe's head of security watching the video, and then immediately calling police and searching for D to eject them from the store and possibly arrest them, completely circumventing B's management. Well, turns out D already fled, so they couldn't eject them from the store, or even get their side of the story. Abe thanked me for my cooperation with statements, info, etc. I then called my management at B's and informed them of what happened, gave them a real piece of my mind pertaining to the toxic environment, no cussing, and then told them I would be clocking out for the rest of my shift due to the distress caused by their continued negligence. They agreed that would be best, and I left. I was then informed the next day by phone from B that I was being terminated. I calmly said I understood and requested in writing why my employment was being terminated via mail or email. They agreed, and I said thank you and hung up. This caused quite a stir within Abe's, and they expressed how upset and confused they were on how I was being treated to be. Well, the next day I get that email from B, and it says I was being fired for calling security and contributing to a dangerous situation. Okay, cool. You want to play it that way? Fine. I got right to work getting my ducks in line for the eventual appeal I knew they would file against my initial unemployment claim. Witnesses, pictures, events I had cataloged, etc. The whole shebang. The day comes when the judiciary calls me and I plead my side of the case. After a long phone call where I meticulously laid out how disorganized and toxic my work environment was over the course of my employment and got information on how to submit evidence, etc., I thanked the agent and we ended the call. About 3 weeks later, I got a letter from the local government saying that they ruled in my favor. This was incredible but nerve-wracking to say the least. I knew B would file their last right to another appeal, and this time I would have to do actual court. But on the other hand, this means since there was still a full-blown pandemic going on, I got a lot from past due UI payments and much more money a week going forward than I ever received at a job in my life. But B did eventually file their right to a second appeal. The day of court arrives, and due to the even worse state of the pandemic now, it's held over the phone. The judiciary asks me if I want my witnesses to be present during me and B's questioning, back and forth, etc. I said no because I believed their testimony would be the same regardless, and the trial went on. Well, surprise, surprise, turns out whatever overworked employee B put in charge of submitting their evidence dropped the ball, and zero info was sent to the local government or sent to the wrong branch. B's representative states they have the evidence on their computer and can send it right now. Judge informed them that that would be illegal, and they were required to send in any evidence 2 weeks ago. Judge then really goes at them for obviously not being familiar with the conditions and laws pertaining to this trial, that it was their responsibility to inform themselves or, actually read the paperwork they sent explicitly stating them. At this moment I was air-fisting while this was going on and muting my phone so they didn't hear Peggy Hill like, oh yes. So with their evidence being non-existent and my witnesses being very much real and mad, The trial pretty much went in my favor, and B. their representative continued to act pretty entitled, annoyed, and unaware and apologetic of their ignorance of local laws, like telling an employee who feels scared for their physical safety to not call 911. I don't think B's representative once said, "Thank you, you're welcome, your honor, sir," or "ma'am," etc. the entire trial. Well, time comes and my witnesses did even more than I thought. They shed light on situations I was not even privy to, and even corroborated a lot of what I presented and more. My favorite part was when the judge asked, "They told you not to call the police?" and the subsequent frustration from the judge after the witnesses confirmed. The trial ends, and we're informed the ruling will be mailed to each of us in another 3 weeks. So, 3 weeks passed, and I got a large letter informing me that again, I won the appeal, and it even went on to explain in detail the laws that my employer was ignorant of, ignored, or refused to comply with, which was even more than my initial research and testimony showed. I finally felt relief and got to enjoy the rest of my vacation, or paid mental health sabbatical, with enough money to pursue other avenues of work at my leisure, with no worries of retribution or having to pay the local government back. This ended up with me eventually taking on far less hours at a much higher pay rate in a different field I've had my eye on, which has raised my quality of life so much. Fast forward to now, Abe has bought out B and taken over majority control due to B's inability to generate revenue with a continual revolving employee management door. Herder, I wonder why. And has extended an offer for my original job, title, etc. back with a substantial pay increase benefits package with far less hours to commit to, and with an in-writing statement saying that if in the future I want a full-time contract with even better pay benefits than my current offer, they are fully prepared to sign me on, would be thrilled if I choose to cross that bridge, etc. The real cherry on top is that B failed to disconnect me from some groups, among other things, after firing me, so they got to see my new job announcement, my old coworkers and new management from Abe excitement around it, and there is nothing they can do about it. Oh, and I framed that last letter detailing my final victory. I don't usually get to win much in life, but now I got a reminder of a W hanging on the wall. Oh yeah,